in case we capture any good conversations. I'll first offer up to see if there's anything that particular that anybody would like to start with. Any burning questions or discussions? One thing I'll offer is that I saw actually in the new, we do have the October release of Alma live now, and in the upper right corner of the screen, there is the announcements icon now, as we discussed last week. So it's a place that you can in Alma get announcements. And one thing that I noticed yesterday was, and it's like a megaphone icon. One of the announcements is classic metadata, editor extension. They had previously announced that the old metadata editor would go away with this release, but they've extended the classic metadata editor availability, as I suggested last week they might. So if you still want to fall back to the old metadata editor, you can. Just pasting the chat in chat the statement of announcements, and that announcements feature is kind of cool. And I see they just this morning there's a couple new announcements. So yeah, that will be. I think that's a nice addition. And there's another announcement in there that you may want to take a look at is Alma Analytics Masters class. There is one of those series of webinars that Ex Libris provides, like they did more recently with acquisitions. This one is on Alma Analytics, so that's 8 90-minute sessions. So that's going to be quite in depth, I guess. So things like that are going to be in that announcements queue that I think I would suggest keeping an eye on. Something I asked about yesterday on our list was just about films on demand and what the current practices are around FOD in Alma. In the past, we've gone through setting up FOD as a local collection and updating the collection occasionally with records from FOD. And I don't know if folks are still doing that, or if in the I'll share my screen. You can certainly look at this in your own Alma instance. I have an Alma instance open, and if we go to and I don't know, I happen to be logged into Olympic College at the moment. It looks like they do have films on demand. Here they've got 39,000 portfolios in the Olympic collection, activated from the CZ collection. It looks like if you look in the community zone collection for films on demand, it's up to 47,000, I think 48,000. So I don't really know content wise. 47,500 basically. So I don't know content wise if that reflects your collections these days. As I mentioned in the email, they've been this has received a modification as recently as a month ago. So those of you who subscribe to Films on Demand, what's your what's your current knowledge of this? And I see some chat on this. And I know, I think, and I always, you guys are more familiar with these content packages. I don't know if Films on Demand is generally a package you subscribe to in its entirety, or if you're selecting titles. Obviously, the lot easier to do, and the to manage as a CZ, where you just activate the collection and go from there. And actually, if we go to I'm just going to go to the consortium website, because it's links easy to find. I'm going to look at the release notes for the CKB. And just I guess, that search for one, I guess. Another yeah, thanks, Kirsty. I see that you guys are doing a comparison in Seattle. Oh, come on. Yeah, anyways, another thing another option and there are some specific, you notice there's a lot of specific Films on Demand collections in the CZ, and just looking at the modification dates, browsing through here, August, so some of these are pretty recent. It looks like there's a lot of different subset packages in Films on Demand, and maybe some of you do that or subscribe to those, and those may be reflected here. And those, what are those numbers? Oh, and these are there's some of these look like they're you activate for search only in the CDI, so I'm not sure what that full text. I don't understand that.
Wade,
yeah,
when it says I just saw one of our collections in there, the science and mathematics. When it doesn't have portfolios, can we still activate it and upload the MARC records to that? Will it then link to those videos?
Ask that question again, Tracy.
So we subscribe to the science and mathematics collection. So when it doesn't show the portfolios tab of how many portfolios in there, but you can activate it, like the one that you were looking at. Does that mean that you can still upload your portfolios and they would show up in Primo?
Yeah, you could. I honestly don't know what activate for CDI, activate for search in CDI means for Films on Demand, since it's not full text. I don't really understand what that means.
And
Thank you.
Tracy, I did hear from somebody on Alma like a year or so ago that their consortium had activated a database type electronic collection for films on demand, and then they were loading the vendor bib records and creating portfolios, but all the bib records and all the portfolio records were attached to that database community zone electronic collection. So it was working for them.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the activate those collections that are activatable in the CDI, I believe what that's doing is kind of like what. Well, I think this was something they did early on with Films on Demand. This is coming back now. I mean, if anybody remembers this, also, you would activate the CDI collection, and then in Discovery and the custom linking, they do have InfoBase, which is Films on Demand. They have the template, so you would need to put your whatever your campus code is, whatever your customer code is for Films on Demand, and then those titles would appear in Primo search results. You just wouldn't manage, those wouldn't be titles you would see in Alma at all. So it would be a CDI only collection. Does that make sense, Tracy? Or anyone else? In that scenario, you wouldn't even load bib records or do anything in the for Alma. All you would do is activate the CDI collection, put in your campus code, and then those results would appear in Primo. One thing to consider there, and this would be for somebody like Seattle colleges, if it's a CDI only collection, those search results aren't going to be in your local scope. They're only going to appear, since those are CDI citations, they're basically articles. They're not articles, but they are CDI citations, and so they would only appear in an everything or a CDI only scope. So that would be, in the case of Seattle colleges, which uses local scoping, basically only titles in Alma, electronic or physical, then a CDI only activation won't appear in the search. So that's something to consider. And then the other thing to consider there when doing that is just confirming the accuracy of the collection. Like you said, health and sciences, I think for films on demand, you'd want to look at that collection and films on in the CZ and see if those titles look like what you have. And I guess it's kind of, I think it's a catch-22, because I don't think you don't really get to see the titles. You don't see the titles here, or there's no way to see the list of titles in the CDI collection. So it's kind of a catch-22. Yeah, and I don't think I'm thinking about whether I know of any way to see title lists for CDI collections, and the CDI collections aren't really set up like that. So So I don't know, there's been a lot of chat. I don't know if I missed anything. And I did look at the Films on Demand website yesterday, and I was trying to find, they don't really publish title lists. I'm sure as customers, you guys can pull a title list, but I couldn't. There was no way for me to see a title list on the way, just on the public website. And then I just looking at the, I was just going to look at, like just a random, it's 10 buildings that changed America. Let's see. Just looking at a random title. I mean, that's a pretty lame record in the community zone for this title, right? There's not a lot there. So there's not going to be, if you activated that collection in CZ, this is the record that you'd be searching. So that's kind of weak. The CDI portion of this collection might be richer. There may be, and if somebody has that active, if somebody knows they have the CDI activated for that, we can look, but that might enrich the record. And I don't know, like, Nicole mentioned her workflow. I don't know if the records you get from Films on Demand are appreciably better than what that looks like. That would be one argument for, or one possible reason to load the records locally rather than activate the CZ. And we actually saw that in, I'm going to switch collections now, but it's sort of a similar CZ versus local collections consideration that's more recent. The Gale Washington State Library contract, the ebook records, there are 80 ebook records or 80 ebooks that are part of the WSL contract, and I know Tracy was having a linking issue with one CZ record for that collection, and also just and one reason I think the link was, I might be mixing apples and oranges here, but that was another case where, let's see, no. It was another very sketchy bib record in the community zone for the title. And it was kind of not sketchy content, but if you looked at the actual content, it was like some kind of pamphlet. It was hardly anything that had been, it just didn't look like anything that important, and there wasn't almost like not a real publication. Somebody turned a PowerPoint deck into a publication, and it was just kind of a sketchy bib record, and didn't have a like a public ID number like ISBN. And so, it's hard to link stuff like that through a link resolver. Yeah, and I see some chat on the big advantage of this. Well, an advantage of the CZ is that if you don't really stay on top of manual updates to collections that you have, then the CZ may stay more current than what you're doing manually. Oh, I guess there's. Yeah, I think I'll give up on this. Oh, and since I don't think I was logged into Alma at the beginning, just so you know where the announcements icon is way over here. Top right corner, and that's the thing I mentioned where you see these nice announcements, metadata extension, the analytics masterclass. So a lot of good stuff in here, it looks like. Um, Another thing we can talk about, somebody asked about enabling, oh, actually, links to ILL request forms in Primo, pre-populated.
Wade, you're already in our catalog and in our Alma, we already have all that set up.
Oh, okay. Do you go to, yeah, I think, well, yeah, I was thinking, I don't know if Naoko is on the call, but I believe, Naoko, if you are on the call, I believe Highline uses its own internal form. There are a couple different ways you can do it. One is to send requests into Alma via the Alma internal request form, and then the other way is to redirect to your own ILL form if you've got a workflow, your own workflow. But just on the, so basically what the use case or the reason you do this is you want to provide an ILL request form for something if your library doesn't have it.
If you expand my results, you'll get a bunch of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can show a link to a form. The most common use of the form would be, okay, your library doesn't have something, and by default the stuff in the initial scopes or stuff you have. So if you want to see stuff you don't have, you have to expand my results, and then we still got to find this. The expand my results includes things you do have and things you don't have. So we've got to find something that, and maybe that was too general a search. I'll give myself more stuff to scroll. Yeah, let me do something. I don't know, a reference entry is kind of a special case, but does the form display on? Yeah, okay, so this is the this is the, this is a link to getting to ILL form, and it can go to an all kind of an in-package form or your institutional form, depending on what you want to do, and it will look like this. This is the Alma form. So this is Olympic is using Alma for this. If we just to give another quick look. Oh no, that's not what I want to do.
Wade, we worked on creating the ILL form within Primo, but we had a backend staff being not an issue. Well, we didn't have people who could process it in Alma yet, so it's not there yet.
Right. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to illustrate here is that same kind of thing. Oh, I guess I don't have ILL may only be for students and employees at Highline.
Well, we don't have it on yet.
Oh, you don't have it on. Okay. So the
right, yeah, you helped me set it up, and it was working on Primo side, but in Alma side, we didn't have the staff to
oh no. I mean the
process.
The link to your Google form should show here if it's something I can.
No, there's no link.
Oh, you're not doing that. Okay. Who is somebody doing that? Somebody have a link to their like a Google request form?
We do.
I know.
At BTC, we have a Google request form for interlibrary loans.
Yeah. And is it linked in Primo?
Gosh, I think so, yeah. We have it down as a link. Well,
Yeah,
I know
don't
we
see
have
it.
a link. We have a link down at the bottom. I know that I think you helped set it up, if I recall. I don't think it would show up under the reference.
So you can have this link and it can go to, as Olympics does, an Alma form, or it can go to your own form, like a Google form. And there's on the Alma side, what this looks like is there are a couple of things. First, so we're talking about, in Alma terminology, this becomes resource sharing because it's not a hold request. It's not a hold on something that you own. Somebody wants to request it from. You're going to have to request it from outside the library. Right? So it's a resource sharing request. So the first thing that matters is in your fulfillment units. I'm going to look at the. Yeah, let's see. I'm just referring back to the notes I linked to on the. Yeah, so. Yeah, okay, so you have to make sure your library is enabled to support resource sharing, and that's actually in library configuration. If you go to look at your basic library configuration info, like Olympic Main Library, resource sharing is activated. So that's the first thing that's important. The default term of use for borrowing resource sharing needs to allow resource sharing requests. So term of use, borrowing resource sharing, the default term of use for borrowing resource sharing needs to allow outgoing resource requests. And this may be disabled by default if you've never set up resource sharing. Because if resource sharing is just not allowed, you'll never be able to see that. You'll never see links for those are the basic on-off buttons for resource sharing requests, is to make sure their library is set to resource sharing, and then the default borrowing resource sharing term of use is set to allow. And then you can, once that's done, you can determine who sees the request link, where does it appear, and where does it go. And that is under, so there's a couple things. There's general electronic services. So you have to decide do you allow interlibrary loan requests? And Olympics is disabled. So how is that possible? Oh, I see. This is
That's our old form. We used to, that looks like it's our
Yeah,
old
yeah.
form. We used to have a custom form that we did in house, and that is what
Yeah,
that is, which
that's-
is why I
yeah.
have it turned off probably.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And that's why that is, if you wanted this to go to your own form, you would configure as you can see in this example, a URL to like a Google form, or Olympic had something on their local website that was a form thing. And then if, for the question of pre-populating, if you wanted to pre-populate your own form, and I think that might have been what Greg was asking last week, you actually have to be able to pass open URL parameters via the URL link. So you have to have whatever the syntax is, author helpful. And
We
then,
decided to use the native form in Alma because when I asked our person who does ILL, she's already in Alma a lot, and this just using the native form cut out the need to go to, I don't know, it just was simpler on her end to be able to do everything in Alma instead of having to get sent like a notification from our custom form out on our own server. It was just much more streamlined for her, she felt, to just use the Alma one and have it all controlled in Alma.
yeah, and that's, it's sort of that's going to be a local decision. That is the advantage of Alma. I mean, the disadvantage is a situation like at Highline where they don't want to use Alma.
Well, and I
Um,
think we also couldn't figure out the syntax to get it to pre-populate
Yeah.
with the form that our IT had designed for us. It wasn't a form that we were hosting. IT had designed and hosted it for us, and so we didn't have access to mess around with it.
And then the and let me say this differently. I'm pretty certain of this statement, the enabling resource sharing library in the library configuration is specifically for when you want to use the Alma form. When you're going to use your own form, it's not really resource sharing. It's just providing a link from Primo to a web page somewhere, which happens to be your form. So in that, it's not resource sharing in the Alma sense. If you were using the internal resource sharing, like Amy was just describing, the resource sharing happens inside of Alma, and you manage it as, if I have all of it correct, you can see like your borrowing, your borrowing requests that come in from Primo will stack up in here, just like local requests stack up in the, is it in the same place? Just like any other queue you work in Alma, you can work the borrowing request, and it does require that if you're going to circulate, like basically it's the workflow is you get, these are requests theoretically for things outside of your library, so you have to get the item somewhere. The item comes in. If you're actually going to circulate it in Alma, you've got to itemize, that is, create an item for the title, put some kind of ID on it so you can actually check it out to someone. Then you have associated loan rules for that, so that there's some workflow involved there that if you just want to keep ILL outside of Alma and somebody just they don't care about Alma, they're just going to use World Share and manage everything there, then you are stacking some extra workflow requirements that somebody may not want to deal with. So that's why that we might have people that have different approaches, and there's a lot of chat going on, so I don't know. Oh, Tracy says if you log into Primo, you'll see our link to our Google ILL form. Let's see, what do I want to say? As far as where who the link shows up for and where it shows up, that's kind of in display logic rules. You can set up rules to determine when something displays, like I don't know if like there's a rule set up in Olympic that says, don't show the resource sharing request if Olympic owns the item. So that's why we had to do the expand my results to see it. If we took this rule out, then you'd get the ILL link on every search result everywhere. You could also do this at different levels of availability by the campus. And that might be something like it's, in a multi-campus situation, you'd want to use. And another thing to point out, if you're not using Alma resource sharing and you're just using like you're just going to use your own form, then the link won't actually show up in how to get it. It'll show up in the link section. It will appear as a link, like a lot of you have those ask the library kind of links. It appears in that section because it's not really a workflow in Alma. It's basically just a link to somewhere else, just like your ask a librarian link goes to a chat page somewhere on the web. And then also you asked about the ILL form at the, you can have the ILL, just a blank ILL link here. So, if somebody doesn't bother searching and they just want to create an ILL request, and that's controlled in the discovery view menu. And there's a blank ILL code that you can enable that will. And you can also, you can also just create, like you have links to your homepage. If you were using a separate ILL form like Highline does, you could link to that. But I see a lot of good chat about, and I don't know if any of you want to discuss this. What your use cases are for ILL and what do you want to encourage ILL requests, or do you want to kind of curate them like somebody's saying, where you want to talk to the student first because you don't want to get a lot of ILL requests in that might not be what they really want, or they weren't sure how to search locally for relevant material first. So nobody. Leslie says faculty need for ILL seems to be higher, and what does that workflow look like, Leslie, or anyone? Is faculty ILL more of a concierge service with librarians, or are they prone to do their own independent ILL requesting? Yeah, I think Ryer's comment is kind of what I picture at a lot of the schools, is that ILL volume is just not that high for a lot of reasons. And when the volume's not that high, getting into the Alma resource sharing workflow may not be the appropriate solution if you don't have the people to manage it or who are ready to engage in that workflow. it may be a more of a person-to-person service that, gives you a chance to touch the user and make sure they get what they need. Where I've wondered about in the past is, in these meetings, I think we've talked about it, what the electronic resource sharing workflow means and how to handle that. I mean, to me, I always think that physical ILL external to the library is just, I don't know, it's hard to imagine a lot of people have the patience to, excuse me, to deal with the turnaround times involved in like getting something through WorldCat or WorldShare. But, electronic resource sharing is, the newer horizon. And that, the thing I don't understand, the thing that's the hitch in that workflow is resource sharing. So I know we've talked about this in the past where some people are doing electronic resource sharing already. I think Ro McKinnon at Whatcom has talked about it. Yeah, so I don't know if this discussion has helped. I think the first decision point is, do you want to use the Alma workflow or or your own institutional workflow? If you want to use the Alma workflow, it's just enabling resource sharing for the library, looking at your display logic rules to see, for whom and when you want the link to show up. Do you want people to be logged in first? Do you want it to appear just for things you don't own? And then for your institutional workflow, I guess the first question is, do you want to expose it in Primo at all? If you do, then it's creation of a general electronic service. You'd add a new general electronic service. The URL link, the name of the service in Alma, and the display name. And then in this case, it's not really a document delivery ILL service. It's just a link out to a web page. So then it's and then once you have that link set up, you can set up rules. You can control the display of that link with these rules, just like you can with the Alma resource sharing. So that's so again, decide Alma or institutional if you want, and then a couple of considerations for each, and then for your own, for using institutional, if you want to pre-populate, then you've got to figure out how to pass the citation values to your form. But one thing that's worth mentioning maybe is that the ILL form is not, it's never gonna, if you set it to only show for things you don't own, then anything in your regular anything that appears in your regular search scopes, you'll never get the link to the ILL form. I mean, if it's a broken link, it's still, that's not an ownership issue, that's an access issue. So like if I don't know, like here, like for this, whatever this content is, it's not going to automatically display an ILL form if this link breaks, because the ILL form is driven by whether you own or have access to it. And in the context of this scope, Alma assumes that, yeah, you own this. So there's no reason to show the ILL form. Just one subtlety on the ILL stuff. And speaking of, that's where we started the meeting, was talking about films on demand. There it is. And just look at it. Yeah, that looks like a better films on demand bib record than we saw earlier in the hour. So, I mean, Amy, I think you guys are loading records from films.
I don't remember loading. I thought we were just using CZ records, but maybe I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, or maybe you are. I don't know. Some of the film records, some of the FOD records may be better than others. So this could be coming from the CZ. It may just, it may be, just not all records are equal, even within the same collection.
I have a vague recollection that we looked at the films on demand records in CZ and they were crap because they were like 4 lines long. But maybe we brought it, I don't remember. If we brought in Mark records from the vendor, we have not continued to do it with all their updates every few weeks.
Yeah, in which case it may be, let's just go, since I'm logged in. I mean, it seems like you're linked to the community zone collection. You only have 39,000 portfolios, so you don't have all of the portfolios that are in the CZ. So you might have done a selective activation.
Well, we do. We only subscribe to the master academic package. We don't subscribe to everything on Films on Demand.
Yeah, but this package in the CZ actually has like 47,000. Let's see.
This is where it'd be nice if system administration was more than like 10% of my job. I would know more about what we're doing and what I should be doing.
Don't feel too bad. This is Melinda over at SCC, and I'm doing the sysadmin stuff and all the cataloging and teaching and ref desk. So I totally understand just like being pulled into too many directions. You're not alone.
That's good to hear, I guess, in a way. Not good.
But I mean, you guys, I mean, it's sort of related. You may have seen the recent job listings from Shoreline. Shoreline is hiring an electronic resources librarian and a is it digital where is it? And I actually commented on it because I thought, oh wow, that's here we go. Digital electronic collections and a usability and web design librarian. So
that's great if people can separate those. Here we're so short. Like I literally have, when I am having to do like professional development justification and all of this stuff, I have 3 different full-time job descriptions I can pull from to justify the things that I do, because I literally cover 3 full-time job descriptions like this. I cover system administrator job description, the databases and electronic services and also reference and instruction librarian. So when there's budget cuts, it all gets mushed together.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. It always seems that, to me, that at some point libraries should discuss what services they want to start cutting. At what point does do you close stacks? Do you stop circulating physical? I mean, how do you adjust for that? If, especially as, if people start leaving their positions, well, like in the situation like you are in, Amy, at some point you decide, oh, it's just not worth it, or this doesn't really work. It seems like there could be adjustments made before that happens.
I agree. When we talk budget cuts, I'm always pushing, like, our cuts need to be visible to campus, and cutting our book budget isn't very visible, but slashing our hours is visible. Yes, it's a disservice to students, but it's a visible cut people are going to see and complain about, and something might get done rather than just piling more work on people behind the scenes.
Yeah. That's a good, I think, cutting hours seems like that's, I mean, it's, and I think some of you are already doing that, as Carabeth says. But I hate to end on that somber note, but I don't, we're at the top, we're at the hour, so we could go ahead and wrap it up there. Yeah, if you have any, as those of you who are thinking about ILL, if you want to ask, any specific questions on the list, that would be a good place to start, and we can start working through if there are details or actual implementation of what you'd like to accomplish. All right, thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a good remainder of your day.